Hey everybody, welcome to another Intro to HTML video. In this video we're going to look back at some of the work we did in a previous video and we're going to modify it. We're going to talk about styling tables. So you might recall a video previously that we made where we built a table. That table started with the root table element. It opens and it closes. That root table element, you may recall, tells the browser when the table begins and ends. The table had three parts to it. It had a t-head, t-body, and t-foot. And the t-head, t-body, and foot had a series of rows, and those are made up of the tr, and cells, which are made up of the td, or table data tags. When we run this in the browser, it looks like this. Well, mine is styled, so yours is not going to look like this. I'm going to undo that style here. Refresh it. There we go. Your table would have looked like this. You had a caption at the top. You had your t-head right here on the top row. You had your t-foot down here on the bottom row. And you had your two rows of td table data cells. We're going to modify this a little bit. First thing I want to talk about is something called the th tag. Th tag is short for table header. It's meant to be used in the t-head of a table, and what it's going to do is it's going to make the content in those cells bold and centered. I'll show you what it looks like. I'm going to go to my markup. So I've got my table, my caption, my t-head. My t-head contains one row, tr, and 4 tds. I'm going to change these tds to ths. Save it. Take a look at it right now. It's not refreshed. Everything is normal. But if I refresh it, you're going to notice that the text got bolder. You're not going to notice this because the cells are too narrow, but it's also centered. If I wanted to, I could make the width of the table wider. And we'll get into width and height and stuff like that in another video when we talk about the box model. But width talks about how wide something is. And I might do something like this, I don't know, 50%. And it'll take up 50% the width of its containing element. And what you'll notice here is that the THs are going to be directly centered inside of these columns. Alright, that's what th does. It makes it bold and centered. That's too wide for my table, so I'm just going to take that width out. I just put that in there to demonstrate what it would look like. Alright, so that's the th. Th is meant to denote content that is the headers on the table. Those headers are going to indicate what the data in each column is. We saw some lists the other day, like the Timberwolves stats. And our table had a header at the top, and the header had a series of cells that are going to have content that tell us what that column data is. So GP, games played, PPG, points per game, PTS, it's going to tell us that. PTS is going to tell us the total points overall. So those table headers tell us what those columns, what the data in those columns are. We're going to use th in our code for those. Okay? Just a little something new. The rest of the table is the same. We've got our th, our t-foot. Remember, the t-foot always comes right after the t-head. We've got our t-body. It's going to come down at the bottom. You may recall that the t-body will always show up in between the t-head and the t-foot, even though we put it down at the bottom of our markup. All right, that's a little bit of review of the table. If I move too quickly for you here explaining how the table works, you might go back to the previous video on tables and just brush up a little bit, review that material so you understand how the table works before we talk about styling it. You want to have a good grasp on the basics of the HTML before we go into the CSS. All right, let's talk about styling a table. I'm going to work with primarily backgrounds and colors to start with. I'm going to start styling the backgrounds of my table. I'm going to select Table, so that will select the table element. I'm going to set the background color. There we go. I'm going to set the background color of the table to something that's dark. I think dark olive was one. Ooh, I could be wrong. Yeah, I think it is. Save it. Refresh it. No, that didn't work. Try navy, because I know that is one. Save it. Refresh it. There we go. The table, the background behind the table is going to turn dark blue or navy blue. You'll notice that the caption, even though technically the caption is inside the bounds of the table in the markup, the browser renders the caption outside of the table, above the top of the table. Yes, we always put the caption inside of the table, but the browser is going to render it outside of the table. So that's my caption right there. If I want my caption to have the same background color as the body, I would need to go to my CSS, and I can do this, comma, caption. What I'm doing is making a comma-separated list of all of the selectors that I want to have the same style applied. So I want table and caption both to be navy blue, so I make a comma-separated list. Save it, refresh it, and now you'll see that the caption has the same background color as the body of the table. All right, now I want to give the T head all of the, well, let's try this. I'm going to style just the THs and see what happens. Select TH, set the background color. Background color, silver. Refresh it. And what's going to happen is all the THs, their backgrounds would be silver. I'm going to try going about this a little bit differently. What if I change this to T head? I wonder if it'll do the same thing. I'm going to select T head instead of TH. No change. What that tells me here is that the background color for things that for THs and TDs are inherited from their parent element. In other words, if I set the background color of the T head, the T foot, and the T body, all of the TDs or THs that are contained inside the T head, T foot, and T body will have the same background color. So let's look at this. T head. T head contains a TR with some THs. What's happening here is I set the background color on the the T head, but the THs inside of the T head will inherit that background color from the T head. Pretty cool. It's a powerful little thing. It allows us to style groups of things at once. So I can style all things inside of the T head the same, all things inside of the T foot the same, all things inside of the T body the same. So let's try this. T foot, I want to have the same background color, so I'll do this. Just make a separated list with T head and T foot. Both of them will have background color silver. Save it, refresh it in the browser. Sure enough, T foot gets that same background color. Now I'm going to give a different background color to T body. Sky blue. There we go. Now this is kind of a nice looking table. I've got my T head with silver background, my T foot with a silver background, my T body with a sky blue background. Now, My caption is unreadable because I've got very dark text against a very dark color background. We don't want to do this. Now there are two things that we could do. One, I could change the background color of the caption, which I don't really want to do because I like that it's the same color as the table. Two, change the color of the font of the caption. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do caption color silver. Refresh it, and now the caption has the font color of silver. Now let's look at this table in the browser for a second. You notice that it looks like it's got dark blue borders in between all of my cells. Well, those aren't actually borders. What those are the little gaps, the vertical gaps and the horizontal gaps in between my cells. And what we're seeing is we're seeing through to the background. We're seeing the background color of the table in between those gaps. And it creates the illusion of borders. It allows us to make a nice looking table like this without having to use the border property. And we don't know the border property. We're going to get into the border property in future episodes. Border property is one of those things that we're going to use very sparingly. But yeah, this is one way of making it look like you've got borders on a table without using the border property. So in short, we've just styled a table. We've learned that you can style the background of the table and it'll color in the whole background of the table. We've learned that we can style things by their groups. I can style, for example, the font family of the T body, and it'll change the font of all cells in the T body. I think it's sans dash serif, I could be wrong. Yeah, I think it is. These are the things that no matter how many times I do them, I still forget, and I always use a reference to look them up. There we go. So when I set the font family of the T body, it changed it as a group. All right? We can also be more specific and select TDs, and then all TDs would change. So instead of doing this on T body, I could do something like this, TD. Change font family, and now all TDs would change, including the TDs in the T foot. If I wanted to change the font family of all of them, I could do TD, TH. And it would change all of them. If I wanted to change everything inside of the table, I could simply change it to table. See, everything now has that. So we can be very broad or very specific about how we select. Select the individual elements like the TD or the TH. I can select them by groups. Table is one large group of things, and everything inside the table would receive that same quality. TH, T body, and T foot are all more specific things that we can select as groups. So that's a little bit about styling the table. I encourage you to experiment a little bit with this. Look up different CSS properties that we've worked on before. Maybe try looking at CSS properties that we haven't worked with yet and see how you can use those in the table as well. Thanks for watching.